India's financial capital Mumbai has crossed 51,000 coronavirus cases, around 700 more than China's Wuhan, where the global pandemic first surfaced in December. Meanwhile, the trend of a high number of coronavirus infections has continued in Nepal as well, with another 300 plus positive cases detected yesterday, taking the total number of infections cases in the country more than 4,000. Good morning, I am Bipashna Tamang and these are the headlines of the hour. COVID-19 tally in Nepal climbs to 4,095 with 333 new cases detected yesterday. Coronavirus deaths reaches 15 in the country. Growing mismanagement at quarantine centers across the country as over 160,000 individuals are presently lodged in quarantine zones. The government to rely on grant and loans to pay public officials as revenues suffer deficit for the first time in 9 years. Revenue Fund faces a deficit of over 193 million rupees. And India's financial capital Mumbai crosses 51,000 coronavirus cases, around 700 more than China's Wuhan, where the global pandemic first surfaced in December. The number of coronavirus cases in the country has climbed to 4,095 as 333 new cases were reported yesterday. With this, coronavirus has now been detected in 72 districts in the country. Meanwhile, Nepal confirmed one more death by coronavirus death yesterday morning, taking the total number of deaths from COVID-19 in the country to 15. Speaking at the daily press briefing, spokesperson for the Health Ministry, Dr. Jageshwar Gautam, informed that the deceased was a 68-year-old male from Chitwan, Bharatpur 11 and was suffering from pneumonia and high blood pressure. Out of the 333 cases reported yesterday, 50 are from Mahottari, 45 from Dhanusha, 24 from Chitwan, 21 from Rohtahat, 20 each from Rupandehi and Kantipur, and 17 from Sarlahi. Likewise, 15 cases were reported from Nawalpur, 12 each from Siraha, Salyan and Nawalparasi West, 11 from Baglung and 11 each from Darchula and Kapilvastu. One case was reported from Ilam, which is the first for the district. According to Health Ministry, 106,333 PCR tests have been carried out in the country so far, including 5,353 tests in last one day, which is the highest single-day test through PCR method so far. Likewise, the total number of rapid diagnostic tests stands at 166,158, including 9,167 in the last one day. 166,158 are in quarantine across the country and 3,487 are in isolation. 96 infected individuals were discharged from hospitals and isolation centers after full recovery yesterday, including 88 males and 8 females. The total number of recoveries stands at 584. The total number of infected includes 3,798 males and 287 females. The government imposed a nationwide lockdown in the third week of March in a bid to contain coronavirus outbreak. 2 high-level committees were also formed simultaneously to mobilize government resources in case of an outbreak, suggesting that the government was proactive in dealing with the global pandemic. However, the plight of quarantine zones, especially in the border region, inadequate tests for coronavirus and an economy that can no longer afford to go on with the lockdown have raised questions on the role of these high-level mechanisms. On 1st of March, a high-level committee led by Deputy Prime Minister Ishwar Pokhrel was formed to control the spread of coronavirus. The committee had 9 ministers, chief secretaries and a secretary from the Prime Minister's office. Ministers in the committee were assigned specific responsibilities, and the committee had the authority to make all decisions that concerned controlling coronavirus spread in the country. 3 weeks later, the COVID-19 crisis Crisis Management Center was formed that included 6 ministers, 4 secretaries and chief of security units among others. However, Tourism Minister Yogesh Bhattarai, who was originally assigned the responsibility of quarantine management, and Agriculture Minister Ghanshyam Bhushal, who was assigned the responsibility of internal coordination, was not included in the Crisis Management Committee. This, analysts have said, has resulted in poor quarantine management and the failure to provide market for local agricultural produce. More than 160,000 individuals are presently in quarantine across the country due to the lack of proper management by the concerned authorities. Most of these quarantine zones have a mix of individuals of all age groups and health backgrounds cramped together. Authorities have failed to address special needs of patients with chronic illnesses, elderly people, and expecting and lactating mothers. This has raised the chances of further complications in their health management. Government data reveal around 32% of Nepal's population has some form of chronic illness. 32% of these chronic patients are battling cancer, while 45% are asthma patients. 40% have heart-related problems, and a significant number are suffering from high blood pressure and diabetes. These patients with chronic illness, children, elderly, and expecting and lactating mothers require special care even in quarantine. However, the government lacks a mechanism to separate the others from these groups in need of special attention. Several deaths have been linked to poor quarantine management as well. Doctors say chronic patients and individuals with lower immunity are more prone to succumb to coronavirus, which makes it crucial for the government authorities to manage quarantine facilities accordingly. However, none of the quarantine facilities across the country have special health services. Doctors have warned it was a blunder on the part of the government to mix vulnerable groups with the rest. Welcome back. The ruling Nepal Communist Party is engaged in a serious debate over the endorsement of the American-funded Millennium Challenge Corporation, or MCC. A faction of the ruling party led by the Prime Minister is in favor of endorsing the deal, while another faction has stood against the endorsement. Interestingly, the main opposition, Nepali Congress, is also favoring the stand of the Prime Minister and is openly lobbying for its endorsement. During the all-party meeting summoned by Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to discuss the government's strategy after the release of the new political map, Nepali Congress President Sher Bahadur Deuba urged the government to endorse the MCC agreement from the parliament. The statement by the Nepali Congress chief clearly indicates the high level of emphasis given to the MCC agreement by the main opposition. The entire Nepali Congress is also fully committed to the American-funded MCC deal, while it is the ruling party which is divided on the MCC agreement. The primary logic floated by the main opposition is that the issue is now connected with a sense of trust in the international community. It is also understood that there is added pressure on Nepali Congress for the approval of the MCC since the deal was signed in August 2017 when Nepali Congress government was in the office. The main opposition, Nepali Congress, has demanded details of the government's expenses to contain coronavirus. At the meeting of the House of Representatives held yesterday, the main opposition accused the government of financial irregularities in the pretext of expenses for containing coronavirus and warned of stern actions if the government failed to publish the expense details. Nepali Congress lawmaker Gagan Thapa called the government corrupt, saying that the government had failed to deal with the coronavirus outbreak. Leader Thapa called on Defence Minister Ishwar Pokhrel, who is also heading the special high-level committee to contain the outbreak, for clarifications.
उच्च स्तरीय समिति भनेर जुन बनाइएको छ हामी उलाई चिन्दैनौं हामीलाई यहाँ आएर चिनाउनु पर्यो त्यो समितिको प्रमुखले उपप्रधानमन्त्रीजीले आएर एक-एक हामीले उठाएको प्रश्नको जवाफ दिनु पर्यो जवाफमा चित्त बुझेन भने सम्माननीय प्रधानमन्त्रीजी आउनु पर्यो, एउटा हाम्रो प्रश्नको उत्तर यहाँ आएर दिनुपर्छ। हामीले आज जवाफका लागि अनुरोध मात्र गरेका छौँ, तर हाम्रो कुराको सुनवाई भएन। 2 दिन अगाडि हामीले विद्युतीय गाडीको सवारीका लगाइएको करका सम्बन्धमा पनि विषय उठायौँ। यी विषयहरूका बारेमा सदनमा आएर उहाँहरूले जवाफ दिनु भएन भने र जवाफमा चित्त बुझेन भने सम्माननीय सभामुख महोदय, आज हामीले रेकर्ड गराएका छौँ, जवाफ मागेका छौँ, तर अब जवाफ मागेर मात्र बस्दैनौँ, थपक्क बोलेर थपक्क बस्ने दिन गए। अब सरकारले यहाँ आएर हामीले मागेको हिसाब किताब दिएपछि मात्रै सबै प्रक्रियाहरू सुचारू रूपले अगाडि बढ्ने ठाउँसम्म हामी पुग्छौँ।
Nepali Congress has accused the government of maximum negligence despite repeated warnings for preparedness and called Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli's conceited attitude had resulted in the government's failure in containing the virus. The main opposition has demanded the government accept its failure to manage quarantine facilities and revamp the entire health system. The government has decided to rely on grant and loans to pay public officials as revenue suffered a deficit for the first time in 9 years. Revenue Fund is facing a deficit of 193.9 million rupees as the lockdown imposed to contain COVID-19 spread has halted majority of economic activities across the country. Prior to the lockdown, the Revenue Fund had more than 100 billion rupees. However, as economic activities come to a standstill with soaring expenses, the government is having to rely on loans to pay its employees. A similar situation was recorded back in the Nepalese fiscal year 2067-68 when the government revenue account bore a deficit of 12 billion rupees. The government was only able to collect 197 billion rupees while its expenses stood at 210 billion rupees that year. Revenues picked up in the subsequent years as imports increased. However, the nationwide lockdown that has been in place since late March this year has dented the government's targeted earnings. The government has so far only collected 636 billion rupees out of the targeted 1,112 billion rupees. Analysts say the revenues went into deficit as the government could not maintain its revenue to expenses ratio. Meanwhile, experts say despite the increasing burden on the state coffers, the government has yet again included unnecessary expenses in its budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Many allowances that the finance minister said would be removed have been given continuity in the budget for next fiscal year. Likewise, allowance for fuel benefits and foreign visits, seminar attendance and vehicle purchase have been raised instead. Economists have warned the extravagant budget will only make it difficult for the government to manage resources in the upcoming fiscal year. And it's time now for our segment Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
And here's the question: why is there lack of coordination among state bodies responsible for curbing the pandemic? Your options are option A, lack of coordination culture, option B, no sympathy, and option C, Prime Minister's feeble role. The voting is on. Type NEWS, select your options A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. And those were our latest headlines. Stay with us for more news and entertainment on KTV HD. Have a good day and stay safe.